Okay, cool. So, Cutie Mark Chronicles. So, we got the CMC again. And it's interesting because, like, we've been developing who they are and the relationships that they have. But kind of what's more important is, like, at this point, like, they are friends and they've started developing that mastermind. They understand really, who they are, who they want to be, and where they want to go with their lives. And now they're able to work towards that goal, right? So you have to earn the ability to work towards the success, the achievement, the goal that you desire. And for these guys, that work, it manifests itself in the activities that they do. So here you can see, they're all like hang gliding through, zip lining, my bad. They're all zip lining, through this, big place to get stuff done. And what's cool is, like, obviously they're like actually getting activities out of the way and they're doing things instead of just thinking about them, which is really powerful. But again, they're growing those social connections, very important. But this is really kind of one of the first moments in the show where, if you start on a new project, you start on something new, like, here's where most of what they've done has been. Like, it's in this range of, like, social things that's accepted. But kind of most importantly is it's, like, overseen by others, okay? So they've got, like, their sisters or other people watching them or doing things with them or guiding them. But this is where now, they're out here on the zip line all by themselves. They're on their own. And everything changes when you become independent, right? Like, for a long time when I started investing in stocks and in assets, I was doing it under my parents' accounts. And so, like, my parents, like, they would see everything that I did. And so because of that, like, everything would flow through them. And because everything flowed through them, they were not really, like, the fastest at listening to me when I was like, hey, got to get this stock. And so, like, I had a lot of things pass my desk where, like, there was a lot of opportunity, but I didn't have the speed to execute. And that's exactly what's been going on with the CMC. They are working like all day, all the time, super passionate, super hard, trying to do as much as they can to really get to their future and to have the experiences they need to achieve, getting their cutie marks. And as they have to be with other people, they have to be with their sisters, like, they're not going to be with them for 8 hours a day every single day. And so they're kind of limited by the work that other people will do for them. Just like when I was investing, right? Like, I was limited by how much attention I could get from my parents who, like, actually had the accounts. So now we have this stark contrast where these guys are going to start to be on their own. So, like, when I got my first, like, personal, like, my investment accounts, I could do whatever trades I wanted, suddenly start to have significantly faster results because you are in control. It's the same thing with CMC. They're now venturing out and able to do things on their own. They've created the independence and the internal confidence to go out there and jump off a freaking platform on a rope and hope they don't die. Like, that's cool. And that happens because they've done so much before. They've put all this work in while they were working with other people. Maybe in the school system, this would be like if you're coding, right? Like, this is like, college, right? And you're being overseen by others. And then, like, everything changes when you go out on your own and understand, like, the insane power of, like, you can attack any desire immediately. And that's exactly what they do. So instead of just doing, like, one thing a week, now, say their output was here, they're able to go through so much more, so much faster. Because here, they were limited, one, because they had to be with other people. And they also didn't have the internal conviction that they were going to adventure, explore, and do with themselves. But they got to this tipping point. This is the tipping point, right? The tipping point. And at this tipping point, confidence exceeds limits. And when confidence exceeds limits, when you believe more than the world tries to limit, all of a sudden, all this stuff right here, maybe that would never have been done if you didn't have the confidence, this starts to become a reality versus what would have originally just been a little bit right here. Now it's like twice that, 3 times that, 10x that. And that all comes from building up that self-confidence to go out there and do things on your own. And again, remember, best way to build up that self-confidence is experience and success. And so that's really what they've done, is they've gone through a ton of experience with other people, and now they've built up that self-confidence to go and have success on their own. So that's probably like the super, super powerful idea from that is, once you're ready to go all in, and know that this is what, so for these guys, right, they had this goal was to get their cutie marks. And they were going on this path, and then they started to find each other as friends, and they realized that they could work together as friends. And after they worked together as friends for a little bit, they had this epiphany. They said, wow, you know what? We're a really good team. We should work together all the time to get this cutie mark. We should work together all the time to reach our goal. And they said, okay, they all agreed with each other. They said, that sounds like a great idea. And then at that point on, and for every point in the future, they were a group, and they were constantly working to get to that goal. The exact same thing happened to me. I was trading stocks for months and months and months and months, for like a whole year. And then there was one day when I was day trading, and I sat down and looked at my computer, and I said, holy crap, I could see myself doing this every single day for the rest of my life, and I'll be ridiculously happy. And that's the epiphany. It only comes after a lot of experience at the beginning, where your successes and your experience and everything that's been behind you snowballs into enough self-confidence to come to a point where everything changes and you realize you can do this on your own. You can cut off the ties in the past and geometrically expand your output by doing it independently, wholeheartedly, and 100%. Without the prehistoric limits, the prehistoric bounds that trap you in, whatever historic period you were doing some processing. Like if you were always under a mentor, always under a teacher, right? Like a school system, great example. Like if you're coding, you're always with teachers, and breaking away from that and coming into this new world. So maybe now you do it on your own, and now you're going super, super hard with self-taught stuff. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you're going from self-taught to having a mentor, having a supervisor, a teacher. It's whatever that stark distinction is in your path, in your journey, that takes you from the old way after a lot of effort to an epiphany to a new way. Okay, awesome. This episode, as they grow up, they kind of talk about some of the younger years of the main six. So that's Applejack, right? And so they were also sort of learning about, as they went off on their own, one of the first things that they did was they started asking the main six how they got their cutie marks, because if you want to have success, a really great way to have success is to ask other people how they did exactly what you want to do and then do what they did. And so the CMC, they start to ask the main six how they got their cutie marks. And what they realized was pretty much all of them were linked. So this is Applejack, and she realizes that she really had to be out of the city and at the farm. She moved away from her farm to the city, and she was having just the time of her life, but she got super, super lonely, and it just wasn't the world for her. And the thing that made her realize that was the rain boom that gleamed towards her farm from Rainbow Dash when she had that sonic rain boom, which is cool. It's kind of like a complex character. Same thing here. This idea that Fluttershy discovered her talents when Rainbow Dash had that huge sonic rain boom. And all of this will come into play a little bit later in the series. Same thing with Rarity. It tells the story about her and how she figured out that designing and beauty was going to be the rest of her life. Again, with that sonic rain boom, it came and it crushed this giant boulder open, and there were gems all inside of it, and that was the inspiration that she had to go and pursue that path for the rest of her life, all because of that sonic rain boom. And this same thing with Twilight. She was taking an entrance exam. Remember, she mentored under Celestia. And the way that she got to mentor under Celestia was she was taking an entrance exam into the Canterlot School of Advanced Magic or something. And as she was taking the exam, she had to open up an egg, which had spike inside of it. And she couldn't open up the egg. She didn't have the power to open up that egg until Rainbow Dash's rain boom came and blasted a ton of magic power like into her and amped her up a ridiculous amount. And she had a surge of magic, slammed open the egg and like exploded the room, and that's when Celestia came in and took Twilight in as her student because she saw all the power that was in her. So there's a little cool side note. And the same thing with Pinkie Pie. She grew up on a rock farm. A rock, I don't know what a freak, she grew up on a rock farm, and she threw like her first party, like her thing is party. So she threw her first party, she had her first epiphany when there was a huge sonic rainbow, and that rainbow like inspired her to go and throw that first party for her family, and it sped her out for the rest of her life to completely shift the course of everything she did so that she was focused on like making people happy and throwing huge parties. So and then there's Rainbow Dash figuring out that she's super fast because of the sonic rainbow that we talked about earlier. So really cool stuff. And yeah, like I said, important event. We'll see it more because it literally made them like all friends, which is pretty cool. So Owl's Well that ends well. This is a story again about jealousy, which we talk about as one of the worst emotions, and anger, which is also pretty brutal. So Twilight gets this new owl. And, you know, the owl basically, it just stays in Twilight's treehouse, right? So here's, you know, Twilight, she reads a lot of books. So here's her reading a book, and she's got really big legs, so there are her big legs. And she gets this owl. I don't really know why. I think she just wanted an owl. Who knows? You can kind of see Spike puffing out his chest. So Spike's, he feels threatened by this owl because like he's, you know, Twilight's assistant, and now Twilight has another assistant, and he feels kind of pushed away, kind of alienated from what was originally like a super cool, close, intimate relationship. He's like threatened now. He's like, oh, there's this owl. You know, he's unable to, you know, add this person, this owl, into their relationship. He was afraid that, you know, this idea of like attention being split, or affection being split, or friendship being split between him and the owl. And so it kind of threatened him as a person, which is like ridiculous because like Twilight, you know, huge fan, like love Spike, you know, they're basically family. And so it's just like a, you know, another pet or whatever. And it shows that like you can't freak out over the crap that like doesn't matter. Like this didn't matter. It was just a cool little guy and a new friend to have, not necessarily a threat, right? And the only way that it's perceived as a threat is if, you know, this internal mind sees it that way. And so it's just like perception of the world around them. Perception, this idea that like this owl is only a threat to the extent that Spike sees him as a threat. And it's the same thing with so much. Because you'll see like these challenges come up, right? And these things that maybe challenge the old ways and bring in the new. And these external stressors, right, brings in stress, and it makes you grow. He has to grow over this. He has to get over this. And the only way for him to do that is to embrace this new person, bring them into their life, and just abolish all jealousy. And more importantly, like this fear he has of letting go of Twilight is like the sole person that cares about him, that he cares about. And so that's really like exactly what happens. So throughout the episode, originally he just like has a bunch of beef with the owl. But over time he realizes that like this is crap. And Twilight sees what's going on and comes in to mediate it and connect with the two. And what's really cool is she says, like, look, she's going to care about both of them. Can't think, he just can't think that she's going to split love or split care, split friendship, because there's always room for more. There's always an abundance in life. And this is something that, like, it extends so much further past, like, social skills and friendship and development and growth. And it's this insanely powerful idea that there's like an innate abundance of everything in life. And you see it like really effectively in money. If you look at like, you know, the wealthiest people, it's just like there's plenty of money. There's plenty of friends. There's plenty of social events, and plenty of wealth, right? it's just abundant. It's everywhere. And when it's abundant, you attract it. And when, if you're like totally convinced that it's just an abundance of anything, it's much, much, much easier to share it and give it away, and then therefore attract more of it into your life. And so it's the same mentality. You want to completely abolish scarcity, right? Get rid of scarcity. Focus on like an abundance of friendship, an abundance of wealth, an abundance of really like everything in your life. And as you move into a mindset of abundance versus scarcity, move into abundance, everything changes, right? So you don't feel threatened here, right? There is no threat when there is an abundance of friendship. There is no threat because there's plenty to go around. But Spike doesn't realize that. He doesn't understand that there is an abundance. So Twilight has to kind of show him that there is an abundance, and that this stress is not a stress. It's not a big deal because there is an abundance of energy, more importantly, an abundance of friendship. The only thing that is inherently limited and scarce is time. And that's like the only thing. It's just time. So he's just got to stop wasting that time worrying about this friendship, which is in abundance, and instead spend that time fully saturated in and enjoy the relationships that he already has. And that it's what so many people freak out about, right? It's the idea that like you can waste away your time and then be freaked out about spending some cash or worrying about something that's in abundance. You see, the wealthiest people, they're not worried about more money, they're worried about more time. And obviously you have to get to that point. But I want you to apply that same mentality to your relationships. It's so difficult like to be jealous of anyone if you realize that there's an abundance of love to go around. It's an abundance of friendships everywhere. And so that's really the exact same thing that you want to picture in your mind, so that you don't have kind of like a competitive spirit. You don't have anger or pop up in your life, because it's such a terrible negative thing. And the best way to just abolish it is to focus and be totally convinced in your mind that there is a total and complete abundance of this friendship and the energy that you desire. And that's really the cure. Like, that is the cure to jealousy. It's just an abundance. You just have total belief that there is an abundance of friendship. And if you find someone and maybe they don't have an abundance of friendship, find more friends. Grow the group. Because as you grow the groups, you have more and more and more and more people, all it does is expand the abundance to greater and greater troves of friendship that you can leverage to have the true connections that you desire. It's so powerful. Okay. So Pinky is in party of one, and so she loves to play on parties, right? I mean, like, that's her thing. She's so passionate about it. And what's cool is, like, as she plans parties, she gets she's super extroverted, right? So she has fun when other people have fun. And so if she can connect with people that go to her parties and like just have an amazing time, she's super happy. Like, her hair, it's usually super fluffy. You see in here, like, her hair is like super flat and dull and like gray. Not gray, but like it's super flat. And that's because like she's super upset. Well, why is she super upset? Well, she's going around, all of town, and she's trying to get everybody together for a big birthday party for her. She has like a pet alligator. It's like a little mini alligator. So she has like a pet alligator, and she wants to get everyone together to have a big party for her pet alligator. And she goes to everyone's door, and she goes to her friends, the main six, and she says, "Hey, come to our big party. We're gonna have this big party, woohoo!" And she gives like this. She like sings all of them a song, and she's like, "Happy birthday!" Super energetic, super excited, super happy, and most importantly, smiling. She's always smiling, like ridiculously and constantly happy with herself and with what she's doing and with the output that she's sharing with other people. She's always happy. She's always smiling. So she invites all her friends and some other people. She invites them all to this huge party that she's going to have for her little alligator. And they're all happy, and they're like, "Oh yeah, sure, we'll go." But they're all kind of like sus, they're a little bit suspect. And in the background, what's actually going on is they're all like conspiring together to throw sort of like their own like huge birthday party for Pinky and Gummy. So as Pinky plans her party and she starts to go and get everything together, the date comes up, and let's see, so she has her party. It's at her house, right? So here's her house. And she puts everything together, balloons, streamers, everything is set up. And she's all ready to have this huge party with everybody. But so the date of the party comes, and Pinky's there with Gummy. He's a little guy. But the problem is, like, nobody shows up. And she's like freaking out. She doesn't know what's going on. And they're not responding to like her invitations. They're not responding to, she like sends a mail or whatever, like the equivalent of texting. And she's just totally alone. And so she becomes like despair. And she's like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Why is this happening? Why aren't my friends paying attention to me? Why aren't they coming to my parties? Why don't they like me? Whatever, right? Now, obviously, they're in this totally separate world where they're like throwing her own party, but it's supposed to be like a surprise. And here we can kind of see the impact that a surprise has on somebody. Remember we talked earlier about radical transparency? And this is, a surprise transparency. This is a surprise birthday party. So this is a little bit on the border of like, should I, do you tell somebody that you're throwing them a party, or do you not tell them that you're throwing a party? But in the workplace and with any application, in a vast majority of social situations, you want to be radically transparent. And that's a concept from transparent, from principles. What's cool is like when you're radically transparent, you don't worry about it. Like you care, but you don't care that much because you know the truth. And it's the same thing with Pinky right now. Like she is caring way too much about her friend showing up, because she doesn't know what her friends are doing. They just have been they're not transparent, completely opaque. And so while they're out here planning this huge party, and then, eventually they come down to Pinky's home to share the party with her, like she's just distraught, destroyed, and completely loses faith in the whole world around her. Why she loses faith in the world around her? Because she cares too much. And it sounds interesting and contradictory, but so often, and especially with relationships, you've got to care, but not that much. Like if people don't show up, it's cool and it matters, right? But like not that much. It's not a huge deal. If I throw like a huge party, if I like 100 people, great example, I invited 100 people to this huge party and like 50 of them showed up. Like you got to care, but not that much. And that's the problem Pinky has here. And it's what makes her so upset, because she cares a lot about this. She cares a lot about her friends. And you should care a lot about your friends. But you can't really focus on things you can't control, like people showing up at a party or showing up at an event or whatever, right? And that's really exactly what happens here. And so they come and they show her, oh, we actually had this huge party for you and we planned it and we're all going to be friends together and woohoo. And then at that point she gets super happy and there's a huge party and everyone goes home happy. But what was interesting is like, the reason that these guys were able to succeed in having this whole plan executed is because like they cared. They didn't care, that much. They were just getting what needed to be done and focusing on what mattered and ignoring like this party, because this party wasn't as important as the giant thing they did. And what they should have done is been transparent. What they should have done is like said, hey, look, we're going to do this party for you. But they didn't. So that was like their first mistake. And then the second mistake, which over here, was just caring way too much about the result and the outcome, instead of trying to sort of negotiate like the terms of the party and figure out who's going to do what and how it's going to work out, which is just so important. These are like huge concepts from You Can Negotiate Anything by Herb Cohen and Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. But like, I don't know if you guys have read these books, they're insane. When you apply them to like situations like this, it's really crazy, because you start to have like stuff like this, right, where you have an argument and there is a separation between two parties and you have to sort of cross this void. And the best way to do that is to get like ridiculously good at negotiating, right? Because when you negotiate in business, when you negotiate with your boss or your colleague or your client, like it's a very obvious situation, pay this much for this much service. I'm gonna pay, however much to get this car, right? But in social situations, it's a little bit more nuanced. And once you can master the art of like negotiations, like in business and professionally, and apply it personally, it changes everything. Because now you can navigate sort of these wishy-washy situations. You can navigate these holes in the road and overcome them using like ridiculously cool social skills, and then combining those social skills with professional negotiation skills. And these guys are cool. They're like, he's an FBI guy. Herb Cohen's an insanely great negotiator. And those books are very, very powerful materials that I've used to really overcome difficult situations just like this one. Because as soon as you can overcome those difficult situations, you can really strengthen this friendship. So instead of arrows out, you got arrows pointing in, and everybody's growing and succeeding as a team, professionally and personally, which is just so cool. And so that's really like the most important thing, is that you just do it and you do it and you do it and you get experience with it and you get better and better and better so that you can get to a point of radical transparency. Awesome. So best night ever. This is the final episode of season 1, and this is that huge party that we were talking about earlier. So remember, they all got their tickets, they got their dresses. I mean, they've been really, really, really working to get to this point in their lives, I guess. And so they're like super excited about this huge party, and it's gonna be the best night ever. So what happens? Well, they go, so here's, they're starting out over here, they're in Ponyville, and they're having fun, they're doing their thing. Go over to Canterlot, and there's like this huge party in Canterlot. And this is like the royal castle, and then I guess this is like the rest of the place. And what's cool is all of them get to the place, and they get to the actual underlying party, which is where like the palace is. So they get to the palace, and they come in, and they're all like super happy. Like they sing this big song about how it's going to be the best night ever, and they're going to have an amazing time, and go and do what they really, really wanted to do. Remember when they were fighting over those tickets, they're going to actually get to, because they got the tickets now, so they can go and do what they want to do, which is awesome. And so they walk in, and huge musical. Everyone's happy. They're just the best night ever. And so there's 6 of them, and they go off. They go, one goes this way, one goes this way, one goes this way. They go off to do their own things. And, they're pre-framed coming into this, thinking that it's going to be like the coolest thing ever. And so because they think it's going to be the coolest thing ever, like they believe it'll be the coolest thing ever. So what's interesting is they come into it like with these super high hopes of like accomplishing all these goals and having like the best night ever. And it starts to go array one by one. So like, for example, Twilight, she really wanted to hang out with the princess, right? With Celestia. So Celestia's standing at the top of like this big staircase, greeting like every single person that's at the party. And then Twilight's next to her, because, that she's like her student. And she just like never gets a chance to talk to her because she's like constantly talking with other people. And the same thing happens, Rarity really wanted to find like Prince Charming and just have like the best night ever with that guy or something. And so, she comes in and she finds like this prince guy who's like the coolest guy ever, and he's like royal, and it's supposed to be like a special guy or whatever. But basically, like, he's a total dick, right? So he just makes her walk over mud and slams doors in her face and stuff like that. So her night goes sour. Same thing with Applejack, right? So Applejack's selling apples. These guys come over to buy apples from him, she's actually got like an apple cart. So here's like her apple cart. But like nobody's buying her apples, which is like a shame, but it's just straight facts. Same thing with Fluttershy, right? So Fluttershy, she wanted to go to this huge, exquisite garden, and she goes to this giant garden, and there are like no animals, and all the animals hate her, and they just run away from her and destroy her. Same with Rainbow Dash. She really wanted to connect with like these top the Wonderbolts, right? Like the leaders in the flight space. And so they come in, and she tries to get in the group, but she just can't manage to force herself into their group, right? So she's going 100%, but there's just like this barrier. She just can't get in. Trying to force, it just does not work. And same thing, lastly, with Pinky, right? So Pinky is trying to throw like the biggest party ever and have an amazing time, but it's like a formal gala. You know, everyone is like ridiculously formal. And so the atmosphere is just totally off for her. So everyone's having their own thing, and she tries to come in and throw up like balloons and have parties and DJs and whatever, and like play a ton of music. And it just doesn't work. It's a total mess. Like all 6 of them go into like total chaos, and it's just insane. And so as the night goes on, they basically, like, all their hopes and dreams get crushed, which is a shame. And they go through this process together where, like, individually, like, none of it worked out for them. And because of that, they're all, like, pretty upset that their dreams, their hopes, their aspirations have kind of fallen away, which is a shame. It's a shame. But what's interesting is, like, so it goes on from that. You know, the party gets crashed. And Celestia, you know, she comes in, she says that she was like planning for the 6 of them to come. Remember, she invited all 6 of them. Everyone else there was like, you know, really old. I mean, just like ridiculously old and like no fun. And so what she reveals is like she actually invited the 6 of them to this party because she knew that everything would go horribly wrong. And because she knew that like nothing would go right. And as they come together, they realize that like they might, because they all had kind of material interests. So all of them wanted like, you know, she wanted to play with animals. You know, Applejack wanted to make a bunch of money. Rarity wanted to get like a hot guy or whatever. Like they all had like these material things that they wanted in the external world. But in reality, like as they sit down and they reflect and they realize like the world that they were in and what actually mattered was that they were first of all strengthening these relationships with each other by going on a group event, right? Further putting in energy, effort, and experiences into the mastermind to strengthen their connections as a group. That was the first most important part. The second most important part was that, you know, they didn't necessarily have to get everything that they thought, you know, was their greatest aspirations from this one event. All they had to do was go through the process. And once they went through the process and once they went through the development as a group, it like not only fundamentally changed the way that they saw each other, but it allowed them to go to this whole new elevated state in the market where like originally they were worried about like, you know, the laundry list of things. But now it's like this 10,000 foot view, right? Where you're zooming way, way, way out and focusing instead on the overall experience. And this is something that is so important as you start really to like push through barriers and jump over obstacles in life, is this idea of like going through the process over and over and over, step by step by step, versus focusing on like the overall experience and getting the holistic growth from it, which is so important. And it's really what fuels, remember, that positive mindset, that positive mentality, that smile, that happiness, that growth, that development. It all comes from this collective group experience that leads to everyone growing together and focusing on internal development versus, you know, the crap, the materials that just aren't going to matter in the long term. Whereas this stuff, this friendship, this mastermind, it perpetuates itself and it does nothing but grow and grow and grow. So that's the really powerful power of friendship and introducing it, and also some of the characters that we're going to work with over the next couple of days, which is awesome. I'm pretty hungry, so maybe we can go grab some lunch. These are some really cool books. I would highly recommend Spagendo, that we work with those. So yeah, awesome stuff, guys. You happy? You excited? Woo! All right.